All right. Welcome everyone to the What's New in 11.5 webinar. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this hour-long webinar where we will go over 11.5 and everything you can expect with the new 11.5 release. So you may have noticed that on our CET Designer page here, we have posted a link to the release notes. I will be using these in the webinar, but feel free to navigate to this release notes area during the webinar if you would like to learn some more information about it, or you can navigate there after the webinar as well. Please know for the webinar, you have been muted upon entry, but there is a Q&A box that you can use, so please feel free to use this box if you have any questions during the webinar, and I will try to get to your question as soon as possible. If I don't answer it right away, we will have some time at the end of the webinar to answer those questions as well. So again, any questions that you have, please use that Q&A box that is available to you, and I will be monitoring that and answering the questions at the end of the webinar. So as I mentioned in our CET Designer briefcase, remember you have all been added to the briefcase here. There was a post posted this morning about where you can go to get to the release notes. Please note that in this post, it did mention that we are doing a staggered release again. So the staggered release is going to be over 2 weeks, so a 2-week period. So it may be 2 weeks until you're actually prompted to update to 11.5. So keep that in mind. If you do notice that your colleagues within your dealership are getting updates, but you are not, that is a perfect time to contact support. So if you're seeing your colleagues getting the update, but you are not quite getting the update yet, please reach out to our support and we can further investigate why that's not coming through on your end. So again, in this post, there is a link to the release notes. It also is available on our help page. So if you go out to there, you'll see that within our help center, there has been release notes for 11.5 posted here. And new this year within our release notes, there are areas that you can actually click on to get further help articles in here. So I strongly suggest going out here to learn more about 11.5 and go in depth if there's more topics that you are interested in that maybe we don't get as in depth for what you're looking for. Also, as usual, we do have a forum post. So if you go out to our CET Designer forum, you'll notice there is a CET Designer 11.5 comments and question post on that CET Designer forum. So please feel free at any time to go out here. These questions are posted by power users and they are monitored by our support team as well. So please utilize this feature if you are running into any issues or maybe questions with some of the new features in 11.5. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here on the news and changes for what's new for 11.5. So the first thing we're going to talk about is there has been a change to the install. You'll notice this when you do get an update to CET Designer, you now have two options for how you can update. There is an update on next startup or an update and restart. So if I switch into CET here, you'll notice I did run an update before here. And notice you can see update and restart. So that'll update your CET Designer right away. Or you'll notice that there's update on next startup. So if I click on this, if I do close out of CET Designer, reopen it later, it will do the update for me on that next reopen. So if that's something you want to wait on, maybe you're not quite ready to update just yet, that is now a feature with 11.5 that you will see. You're also going to notice in the update, there is still that show updates, but this has been cleaned up to make it easier for you to understand what updates are coming your way. So if I click on Show Updates, you'll now see that in this dialog for what extensions will be updated, it's now going to list off if there is a minor update or a major update here. So notice I have a bunch of minor updates that are listed out here. So that's letting you know that there's not anything super major that you have to do right away. So if you are considering, I might want to wait and update later, this is letting you know these are just minor updates, so you certainly can. If you do ever come into this dialog box and you see a major update, strongly suggest going ahead and doing that update right away so that you get maybe that fix that you've been waiting for there. Please know that if you do update and restart, minor and major updates will come through at the same time. So it's not just going to choose either or, it will do all of them. But we strongly suggest if there is a major one there that you definitely go ahead and update. Another feature that you will see with updating that we have done is we have actually changed a section in our control panel, and that is our network section. So our network section has now been renamed to say updates and network. So you'll notice in the control panel, instead of just network that it used to be named, it now says updates and network. So if we go into that control panel area, you will see that name change. And you'll also see some added features that have been added to updates and network. You now have the ability to control when you install your updates. So if I check this box, I can now say I want the updates to come on a certain day and at a certain time. So if maybe there's a time at the end of the day when you're not as busy, or maybe on your lunch hour and you're like, that's when I want these updates to run through or come my way, this is what you can now set in your control panel. So it's a whole new section that has now been added for you. You'll also notice in this update section, you now can keep previous versions. So there now is a checkbox to keep your previous versions. If you are someone who maybe has had to revert back in the past with the last update, this might be a checkbox that you want to keep enabled so that if you do an update, maybe something's not working quite right on your computer, if you chat into support, we can revert you back, or you can certainly revert yourself back if you have this box checked. Notice it also allows you to clear the previous versions now. So if you decide, I don't need any of those previous CT Designer versions, it can clear it. Please keep in mind with this checkbox, that does take up more storage on your computer, so you do want to make sure you're monitoring that. But definitely a nice thing to have as a fallback safe if it's something that you would like to have stored and available to you there. And someone had a question. They asked if someone is speaking. Yes, I am speaking. So if you can't hear me, I would recommend to call in there. So if you are having any audio issues, please go ahead and phone in there. You should all be able to hear me. Okay, so moving on down here, a couple other updates and new functionalities that we have now added to schemes. So a new tool that is now in the tools menu, and it is part of the new schemes, is going to be the scheme painter. Please know with this tool, it is involved with the new schemes. So if your manufacturer has updated to the new scheme layout, the scheme painter is going to be available to you. So it is something that you will have to have the new adopted schemes to be able to access the scheme painter. Notice with the scheme painter in the help article, you do have the ability to click on this. It will open up into a separate help article. So if after the webinar you decide, I'd really like to learn a little bit more, or maybe I missed something that was mentioned, this article does a fantastic job of walking you through all the different steps that go along with the scheme painter. So please keep in mind, this is a little bit newer to our articles that we have now placed. You can now click right within this release notes here, and that will take you out to our additional help article. So what the scheme painter allows us to do is when you select one or more source objects in your drawing, it allows you to copy and paste their properties and materials to other objects if applicable. So you would select your items and then target specific items in your drawing so that it will apply that across the board if the target object can support them. So want to make sure that it can support those objects there. So how the Scheme Painter works, and this is actually a very great scenario if you're someone who pulls in a typical, maybe your manufacturer has a website and they have a lot of different favorites for CAT Designer that you can pull in. And maybe you pull in a favorite from their website and you realize, you know what, I really like these finishes. So maybe I pulled in this favorite and I'm like, I really like the fabric on these finishes. I would like to apply that to the object in my drawing, and I would like to apply it to my schemes. I don't know where they got this fabric, but I really like it. Well, that is a great area that you can use the Scheme Painter for. So as I mentioned, this new tool is located in the Tools pull down. You'll notice if I go to the Tools pull down, I can see Scheme Painter. It does have a keyboard shortcut already assigned to it. So the letter P, that actually used to be available on your keyboard. So if you had that assigned to something else, you might want to consider reassigning that item. But the letter P has now been assigned to Scheme Painter, which is pretty easy to remember. If we think painter, we can definitely think of the letter P. So when I click on the Scheme Painter, it's going to open up this Scheme Painter dialog. The first thing it's going to want me to do is make a selection. So whether I'm in group or single select, doesn't matter. I can make my selection here on my product. Notice it's selected my entire station, and then it's going to list out all of my selections here. Now, a couple things that I want to pay attention to, especially if I have selected a group of items. The first thing is you'll notice at the top I get this FICA scheme conflict that has appeared. And that's because if you notice on this station, I have fabric, but then I also have a marker board material. So it's letting me know that there's two different materials that are applied to this panel, and I need to choose each one. Notice if I hover over the first section of conflicts, it's highlighting all of those panels that just have the straight fabric. So it's letting me know that is what I'm going to be applying. Whereas this other panel that has the marker board, if I choose that, it's just the marker board that's going to come over. With this Scheme Painter, it is applying monolithic to your panels. So it's only going to do monolithic. It's not going to bring over segments or anything like that. But it works really well in a scenario like this where that panel fabric, if that is a majority of what my panels are and I want to apply that to my scheme, I don't know where to find that panel fabric, then this is what I can choose because I'm just going to choose the one that's going to come over monolithic there. So notice when I do hover over any of these, it's highlighting which material it's going to choose. And I do need to choose a conflict here. So when I put a little dot next to this first FICA panel frame, notice it says my conflicts have been resolved, and it automatically switches you into this next section, this number 2. I can certainly go back to the previous section of make a selection if I want to. Had I just clicked next, it would put me into the number 2 as well, and I'd still have to choose an item for my conflict. So it's always going to make sure I do that. Had I not chosen anything and I had conflicts, it won't allow me to apply. So if I go back and I have conflicts, and I say, well, I don't want to apply anything, it's not going to allow me to apply. So I do need to make a selection there in order to choose the schemes I want to apply. So I've chosen my panel fabric here. You'll notice you can also choose if you want other items to be included. So my overhead, pedestal, my work surface, all of these items are turned on. So that means they are going to be included if I go to apply this to my next station that's over to the right here. So if I do want those included, I'd want to leave them turned on. If, for instance, I decide, I don't really like that overhead paint, I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. When I go to apply, this will not come over. So you also can control what items are coming over and what is not. Notice you may get a not compatible section down at the bottom, and it's letting me know my FICA chair. When I do hover over that, it's highlighting in blue. It's letting me know my FICA chair is not compatible. And that's because my FICA chair is a catalog symbol. So catalogs, remember, we still have to apply our finishes in that green property box. They don't use schemes. So it's letting me know my chair is not compatible in this scenario. Because it is going to be a catalog symbol, and I do have to apply that finish in the green property box. So that's letting me know these finishes for this chair are not going to come over. So I decide, okay, this is the panel fabric. I have all my items. So I'm going to go ahead and apply to all. Notice you still have the option like you did with your schemes to apply it to blocks. So if you do have blocks in your drawing, it will work for blocks. Or if you do have frozen items, you can also say you want it to apply to frozen items there. So I'm going to say, I'm going to apply this to all. When I do, notice all of that panel fabric came over on every single panel that I had. And I also see that my fabric comes over on the work surface, the pedestal, and the overhead there. Now, probably one of the more powerful functionalities of this tool that I find extremely helpful is you can also take these finishes out to your scheme. So this is extremely powerful if you have brought in that favorite from that manufacturer's website, you've applied it, and then you're like, you know what, I really like this. I want to create a scheme out of this. How do I get this into that scheme format? Down in the far left corner, there's a little kind of colorful globe, and notice it says, create a scheme from selected properties when I hover over it. So if I choose that, it's going to give me this dialog box, and I can say, okay, I want to create a default scheme from these properties, or I want to create my own scheme, completely new scheme based off of this. So when I do that, I can push that out to that new or default scheme, and it'll take all of these finishes and put that into a scheme for me. So definitely a really, really nice tool, because not only can I apply that to my items that I have selected, but I could also go and apply that and create a scheme from it here. And it looks like we had a couple questions come through. Brooke said, will they be making a change in the future that we can select which updates we want to do, only a major one or a minor one? Brooke, that's a great question. So at this time, if you did only want to do the major ones, you could go into extension details. We don't really recommend that because typically we would like our support team to just manage that, but you do have the option with this update to go into extension details and just control that. However, I would highly recommend sending in a feature request for a really easy way that you could control those major and minor updates. That would be a really good one to add in on top of this. And Sammy asked, what kind of products are there that are not catalog products? Sammy, if they're not a catalog symbol, we also have symbols called PGC symbols, and those symbols allow us to apply finishes through schemes. So the reason the Scheme Painter works with the PGC symbols is because it does go through the scheme item. You can learn about PGC symbols in our Beginner to CT Designer course. All right, so really cool feature with that Scheme Painter. Again, I can either apply it to my objects, or I can also go ahead and push that out to a scheme. Now, if you did have a segment, if I did, for instance, let's say have a marker board applied to the segment that I wanted to bring over. Again, it is only going to do monolithic, so the reason I didn't choose the marker board is that would apply it to the entirety of all of my panels. But a lot of your manufacturer's extensions do have that copy tool, so you could easily just grab that, copy your entire panel, and apply that right to the other two panels there. So that's a lot quicker and easier to apply and copy over that tile segment and material. But you'll notice it works really well if you do have that monolithic. You can easily apply that. And so that's going to be something that you want to keep in mind there. Again, keyboard shortcut for that is the letter P there. Another thing related to schemes that we have added is the eyedropper tool. So again, the eyedropper tool, you'll notice that does have a help article linked to it, just like the Scheme Painter. And the eyedropper tool, what's nice about this is it allows you to pick up the property values of any objects in your drawing and automatically add that to the visible fields in your scheme dialog box. So this certainly can speed up your workflow. Again, only with the new scheme. So notice it is involved in the new scheme layout. So if your manufacturer hasn't quite made that change over to the new schemes, you will not see that until they do there. So if I open up my scheme dialog box for Fika, when you get 11.5, you will notice that you will now have an eyedropper near the bottom of each one of your sections in the scheme dialog there. So this allows me to pick the values for my component. So when I grab this little eyedropper, I can then hover over the objects in my drawing, and because I was in that panel section of my schemes, it's only showing me my panels, so it's kind of whited out all of the other product there. And then I can go through and choose the panel that I want. So maybe I want this marker board fabric here, and then the fabric as well to apply. So I'm going to select this panel. Notice it's going to let you know that you are selecting it by that blue highlight, and then I'm just going to left click. As soon as I do, that's going to apply all of the materials that were on this panel to the different sections in my scheme. So notice my base cover, top trim are now white. I now see that fabric material that was on there has now been loaded in, even if it's a COM, which is applied to mine. Notice the marker board material has also been applied there. So all of this got applied. I could go through my different sections if I did this with work surfaces. Notice only my work surface will be available there for me to select. So when I select a work surface, it's going to apply those finishes as well. Storage, if you have multiple different storage options like overhead and so forth, it would allow you to choose either or, so either that overhead or that pedestal, and that'll get applied to that specific area that is just for my lower storage. Notice my upper storage did not get applied. So what's nice about this is I could create a scheme, save this really quickly, and have my finishes loaded in there just by using that eyedropper and grabbing that and having it apply to those different sections there. On top of this, we also have updated the apply to section and apply to all buttons. So these buttons that you see over to the far right, you probably notice with my eyedropper here, apply to selection is grayed out, and that's because I haven't made a selection in my drawing. If I make a selection with my work surface and I have that selected, I can say, okay, now apply to selection is available to me because I can apply it to the item I've selected in my drawing. So no selection, that'll be a grayed out. Apply to all if that's applicable, it will be ungray for you as well. So now that has been updated to let you know, hey, you need to make a selection there. All right, so that is the changes for schemes. We also have now added a new query to the advanced selection here. So we have always had the advanced selection. This came out in a previous update, but now in our advanced selection, they have added a query tool in this advanced selection dialog. It is text-based, and so it allows you to type in a specific string of text so that you can just select that item in your drawing. A really good example that I have found for this is panel types. So if you need to only select certain panel types in your drawing, you now have the ability to do so with this tool. Or maybe only certain items in your drawing, you now have the ability to do this. So I think this is a really great feature because it's something that I personally have seen a lot of requests come through in the past for. So that advanced selection tool, remember, it does live in the tools pull down. So this has always been here, but you can get to it from the tools pull down, and it still has that Alt-S keyboard shortcut to open. So that'll open my dialog here. Now in this dialog, you're going to notice that now there is this selection query. So this query section has now been added. This is new with 11.5 here. When I hover over this query section, notice over to the right, I get this text dialog, and then I get all these different items that I can select. And this is going to allow me to kind of break down these different sections so that I get a certain selection in my drawing, or create a selection in my drawing here. So you'll notice panel type was an option. So if I click panel type, it's then going to give me the option to say equal, in, not in, or not equal at all. So anything that's not a part of the panel type. But I want to be able to choose a specific panel type. So I'm going to hit equal. And then it's going to list out all of the different panel types in my drawing. So let's say I know I want to select all of my D panel types. So I'm going to go ahead and hit D. Now that that's chosen, I can keep going as much as my heart desires, but I'm going to stop right there because this is the only panel type I want to select. And then I'm going to come over to this far green triangle, and notice it'll say Run Query. So I'm going to click on that, That's going to run my query selection, and notice all of those panel type Ds got selected in my 2D and my 3D. What's awesome about this is not only did you make just a certain selection in your drawing, but now I could come in here and say, okay, well, I just want to apply a certain scheme to those panels. So maybe I come in here and I change that to blue, and I say apply to selection because those panel types have already been applied, and that will apply, and it looks like my marker board got applied, but that will apply my finishes to just that panel type there. So definitely a very, very powerful tool. Again, that is located in the tools pull down in the advanced selection. If you go into query, that's where you can make your selection. And you can make a lot of different selections here, more than just panel types. I can do category. If I wanted to select all of my panels in my drawing, I could say category equal, and then it'll list out all of the different categories that I have in CET Designer with my items. So if I wanted to select all of my panels and run that query, notice all of my panels will get selected in my drawing based off what category I have chosen. So because I just chose that panels category, that's what's getting selected in my drawing space. So definitely a really nifty tool. Again, Alt S will open up that advanced selection, and that query selection is now available to you for 11.5. Couple updates that have been made with pay-per-view. So we know with pay-per-view in our last update, we had a really nice update to our view clips. We now have inserted a different update to our view clips, and you now have the option to do a custom shape. So that's right, you can now draw whatever shape you would like when it comes to the 2D view clip there. Please keep in mind, a lot of these tools are similar. If you do use the custom shape tool within CET Designer, you're going to notice a lot of similarities with the tools that are available with the custom shape in pay-per-view there. So I'm going to go ahead and switch into my pay-per-view. And within pay-per-view, again, in that tools tab, I'm going to go ahead and grab the 2D view clip. This is just for the 2D view clip there. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. You always had the option to choose a shape, so you'll notice rectangle, rounded rectangle, and ellipse are still there, but now you have this custom option. So this is the new option available with 11.5. So if I choose custom, that's going to give me a little dot on the end of my cursor, and now I can draw whatever shape I want this view clip to be. So if I know, hey, my items have been kind of in a weird view and I need to make kind of an L shape to get everything the way that I want, I can use the custom shape for that. So I'm going to go ahead and make my selection. This is similar if you've used the custom shape tool before. You basically just place a left click each area you want your dots to be. So I'm going to place a left click in the upper corner, left click in the bottom, and basically I'm just drawing out an L shape. So every time I place a left click, it's going to allow me to change the direction of my line. And then again, just like the custom shape, I need to find the end of that line, so I need to hover over the end there. Soon as I place that last placement, it's going to put me into that edit view that we're used to seeing with view clips, where my 2D background changes yellow there, and then I'll be able to place my view clip. So I know, okay, this is the perfect shape because I have just that station that I wanted, and I'm grabbing those stations in that room. That's what I was looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and left click and place that. And notice now my L shape is in there. Notice if you have used custom shapes in the past, similar outline here. So these yellow nodes, they allow you to adjust the corners of your shape. So if I drag out this yellow node, notice I can adjust the corner here really easily. So this allows me to adjust the corners just like we have with our custom shape. And then remember, you have those green triangles there. So that also allows you to drag your area. So if I decide, oh, I need to grab that other station, I can easily resize my shape after I've placed it. So if you get your custom shape in and you're like, this is not including everything that I want, I can certainly drag either the side out by those green triangles or the yellow dot. Or I could also drag this up if I wanted to include more of this station here. And it looks like Alyssa said, we've been waiting months for custom view. Yes, I know that this has been one of those very large requested items. So super awesome that you have been waiting for that and that came for you there. So fantastic. One other thing I do want to mention with our custom shape that we were used to, we can add in a dot or we can curve our custom shape, and you have those same tools. They're right under the 2D view clip now. So notice you can add a point or you can switch straight to curve. So you can now do curved on certain edges of your custom view clip if you want to, or you could add a point. So if I decide, oh, I need to break this out a little bit more, I can add a point here. So then that way I'm only stretching out maybe part of my custom shape. So similar tools, if you've used the custom shape in CET Designer, you can now add a point which is below the 2D view clip or switch straight to curve there. And looks like Rebecca had a question. Sorry, Rebecca, I didn't see that come through. Rebecca's asking, if you apply that to your default scheme, so I think that was the scheme painter, is it just for that drawing file or does it replace your default scheme for all files moving forward? Rebecca, great question. So with the default scheme, that is only for your drawing. So if you do apply the scheme painter to just the default scheme, that is only going to be for the drawing that you have open. However, if you applied that scheme painter and pushed it out to a new scheme, that's where you can save that new scheme as a reusable file. And that's actually been true for schemes in general. The default scheme is only always for that drawing, and then the new scheme allows you to resave that as a reusable file for future ones. So great question there. And then Marilyn said, does this work for both 2D and 2D empty? 2D empty, yes, you do also have the custom as well. So you could certainly, if you're using the 2D empty, maybe to create title blocks and save your paper that way, you can certainly use the custom shape there. So great question as well. It is for both of those. Now, if you do place a custom or a view clip and you want to change it later, so let's say I do my rectangle, and then I decide, okay, I'm going to grab my station. Maybe we're going to do 1/4, place that station. And then I decide, oh, this rectangle view clip, that cut out my one station here. I want to change this to a custom. So you'll notice, just like the rectangle and the rounded and eclipse, you can switch this to custom. You can easily just drag out this side, and then you have your updated items there. So keep that in mind. If you place your view clip as a custom, great, it'll allow you to adjust that. If you place a rectangular there and you want to switch the shape, you certainly can do so after you place a view clip also. And looks like Mark had a question. How can you use the custom shape tool to trace an area from a plan? Like one condo unit on a floor plan, for example, that you wanted to trace exactly around. Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. What I kind of have been doing with the custom shape and what you saw is I find it extremely helpful to try to get a shape in my head if I'm doing it that way, if I'm using the custom shape first. So I knew that with my layout, that L shape worked best for what I wanted to include in my view clip. So I can either do it that way, and then it'll bring that shape into your actual space to place. But if you don't get everything that you want, you can certainly, grab the sides and stretch this out and adjust the view clip the way that you need to get those items included. So something to keep in mind, you don't have to do the custom shape exactly the way that all your items are placed. You could certainly edit it after, or like I just showed, you could place a rectangle and then make it custom later from the green property box when you select that view clip. So you could make those adjustments there. That would probably be the best way to use it so that you could get that area traced exactly the way that you want. Okay, so that is view clip. One other thing you do also have, or two other things I should say, you do also have the ability to now select multiple papers. So you weren't able to do this before, but now it is an option. When you have one paper selected, if you either hold down Control or Shift, either or. So Control, or if you like holding down Shift better, I like Control because I'm kind of used to that. With Control, I can select other items in CET Designer already. So if I hold down Control, it will select both of my papers for me. And it is very subtle. So keep in mind, if you're not seeing that taking a place, it is just going to be these little blue triangles. So it doesn't actually highlight the paper like the one you have selected. It's just these little blue triangles that'll let you know that both papers are selected there. So keep in mind, it's very, very subtle when you do it, but either holding down Control, selecting both, or Shift will allow that to happen there. And then one other functionality, we have adjust the functionality of tag legends. So if you use tag legends in pay-per-view as well, they now have expanded offers for more customization. So they've added new color options as well as style options, and manufacturers can now add their own custom columns to tag legends. So if this is something that you use quite a bit here, and I'm just going to delete that view clip and add that in. Again, your tagging legend is near the bottom there of your tools. So if you scroll down to the bottom of where your view clips are, you can find your tag legend. And now what has been added is this tagging category. Manufacturers can now add in their own. So you'll see there's quite a bit more listed here, or you can select an existing one from your part tagging category. And then these styles have now been added. So you now have a title style, so you can edit the title of what this looks like. You can also edit the header of this as well, and you can now edit the text style. So all of these styles have been added along with manufacturers now having the ability to add in their own custom tag within here. Again, more color options have also been added, so definitely go and check that out if tagging legends is something that you use quite a bit there. And Bridget had a great question. She was asking, what would be the reason for selecting multiple papers? Bridget, that's a great question. Yes, probably for deleting. The other area is you can export your papers out to AutoCAD, so that might be a reason for selecting both. But yeah, if you have a mass amount of papers, I can see that used a lot for deleting. If you wanted to delete 4 of them, you now have the option to do so instead of individually deleting each one. Before, we did not have the ability to select all of those papers all at once. Couple other miscellaneous things I want to point out. RevLink extension now supports Revit 2021 format. So if you are using the RevLink extension, please know that when you get to 11.5, we are supporting 2021. Huge one, and I know it's kind of maybe going to get overlooked because it's in the miscellaneous section, but I want to put exclamation points around this. Custom categories can now be saved from the categorization dialog box. I hope I'm getting a lot of dances and hopefully smiles right now as I say that out loud, because I think that this is one of the biggest requested things that we have had for the longest time. If you create a custom category, you can now save it and use it for sharing. So I actually already created some in my drawing space here. So I'm going to switch out to my drawing space. I'm going to go to that tools pull down. Remember, categorization lives in your tools pull down. And in here, you'll notice I've created a category, my dimensions, and I did create subcategories as well. It will save your subcategories, so architectural and electrical. And then I created a revision cloud category. So if you create a couple categories in here, you want to save them as a reusable file for yourself or to share with others in the company, you now have the option to do so. You'll notice in this categorization dialog box, you now have an export and import button. So if I click export, that is now going to save this out as a reusable file. Want to make sure you create a custom categories folder now. So this is a completely new reusable file. It's not something that you might have a folder created for. So if you are someone who uses reusable files quite a bit, you use them on your network location, make sure you get with your office there and you create a folder for everyone to be able to save those in. They save as a .cmctg file type. So you'll see that file type there. And they do save all of the ones that you have created here. So I can say my custom categories, hit save. And then now if I go ahead and import that in, you'll want to find that .cmtg file type. So if I create a new drawing, that's completely empty. Go into the categorization box. Notice don't have the categories there, so I'm going to go ahead and import. find that .cmctg. So wherever you save this, again, this is not a folder that is automatically created. It's one that I have created on my own. We always recommend reusable files get saved in a network location. So I'm going to open that up. And notice my dimensions comes over with the subcategories and the revision cloud. So please keep in mind when you export these, all of the categories that you have created will get saved in this. So keep that in mind. If you are creating them for a specific client, you might want to make sure that you're creating them and then saving them for that specific client name if there's certain ones you use for one client and certain ones that you use for another client. And it looks like Stephanie is jumping through the roof, which is exactly the reaction that I wanted from the reusable categories. So awesome. Yes, no problem on listening there. I'm super happy to announce that one. And Alyssa, I think I might have answered your question already. She had asked, what if we wanted to save just one custom category, not all of them? Certainly, I would only create one. So keep that in mind. If you do create a custom category and you maybe are creating multiple of them, but you only want to save one, what I would recommend is once you create that first category, export it out. So that way, any other ones that you might not want to come over, they don't come over with the one that you've saved. So had I not created dimensions, these were deleted, revision cloud would be the only one that comes over there. All right, couple more things, hang with me, we are almost there. Just a little note, we have added a new button to the warning dialog for missing licenses. So now it's easy to uninstall such extensions with minimal hassle. So I know you probably saw that dialog come up for you in the past. It's now been adjusted so that it's a little bit easier to uninstall those if you don't need them and you need to open up a drawing really quickly, or you don't want those missing licenses to bother you. You can at least get into CET Designer. Another thing, and this is actually pretty cool, I think this will be used a lot. This was originally in pay-per-view, but it's still in pay-per-view. But now the leader text tool has also been made available outside of pay-per-view. So if this is something you used in pay-per-view, it's now also available in your drawing space. And that's going to be in your tools tab. So that tools tab that everyone has access to, it's in the image and text section. It looks like that same icon that you saw in pay-per-view, the one that looks like a little work surface with an A, and it'll say leader with text. So I'm going to switch back to my drawing that had all of my product in it so I can demonstrate this here. So if I wanted to maybe call out this Fika chair, I can now grab that leader with text. It's going to allow me to place my text first. So I'm just going to left click on my text, and then I'm going to point at the object that I want, and notice that text now automatically populates with the object that I'm pointed at. Or if my work surface and cantilever overhead, it makes those adjustments automatically. This is something that was available to you all within Paperspace, but now it's also in your drawing area. And they also have changed in the green property box the arrow angle. So now you can set that to be a nice 90-degree angle if you would like, or you can also choose free, and that allows you to grab this little yellow node and basically drag this to whatever direction you want. So 90 degrees or free, that has also been added with the leader text now being available outside of pay-per-view there. And last couple of things I wanted to mention. We have removed the distance unit choices for inches and decimals and feet and inches and decimals. And the reason that we've done that is to cut down on duplication. Since inches as well as feet and inches options already show decimal values, it wasn't necessary to have that other one. So if you did have either of these chosen in the control panel, it's now just going to have use of inches or feet and inches. So we'll make those automatic adjustments for you already, but keep in mind that is getting automatically adjusted for you. So you'll need to know that that is not going to be an option in the control panel, just to kind of reduce the duplication there. Now, as usual, we have bug fixes, and I want to point out there is a zillion bug fixes. I am doing a lot of scrolling on these bug fixes. I'm not going to mention all of these, so please, please, please go out to the release notes. I'm sure that there is a bug fix that maybe you have been waiting on, and you want to make sure that that's been added. this is a great area to go. So if you didn't know where to get to these release notes, I will put it in the chat box for you. But again, it is on our help article. So if you're in that CET Design Your Briefcase, they have posted a link there right to those release notes. Or if you're out on our help center there, it typically is the first one that will pop up because it's super popular, but you can always search for 11.5 and that will bring up when you search for that the release notes as well. So it is available on our help center. So please keep in mind, or that link will take you out to there as well. But please check out this. Notice it's the first search when I type in 11.5. This is a great area to go, and there's a lot of different links in here for the scheme painter, the eyedropper tool, apply to selection, and even these headers. So these all take you out to a separate help article. So super important to kind of explore those if you want to get even more information. Please don't forget about the forum. It is linked to this help article, but if you go out to the CET Designer forum, we do have that CET Designer 11.5 comments and questions. So you can certainly go out there if you're running into any issues, please post them there, or maybe you found a really cool thing that you want to brag about. Certainly that is an area to go as well. We always recommend posting there to get that feedback. We love to hear it. As I stated, I did record this. This recording will be posted on our CET Designer Briefcase. So if you missed anything, or maybe you want to have a colleague watch this and they're not able to get onto our other What's New in 11.5 webinars, certainly tell them to go out to the CET Designer Briefcase. That will be up there for them to view. But as always, we do have a ton of What's New webinars on our Academy page. So please don't forget about that. If you have someone who you know is interested in joining one of those What's New webinars, they are at the very top there. You'll see that there are a ton of What's New webinars that we are doing over these next couple of weeks. So certainly go out there, and if you know someone who really wanted to join but couldn't today, point them in this direction. That would be fantastic. All right. Well, I think I got to everyone's question. If you did have any additional questions, please put those in the Q&A box and I can answer those for you if I didn't get to your question already. But if you don't have any questions, thank you guys so much for joining me today to learn a little bit more about 11.5. Do not forget this is a staggered release, so if you don't have it right away, it is going to be over the course of 2 weeks. But if you know colleagues are getting it in your dealership, don't forget, support is here to assist you, so you certainly can reach out to them at any time if you need to. But if there are any other questions, please put those in the Q&A box and I can answer those. If you are hopping off, have a fantastic rest of your Monday. I hope you guys enjoy the 11.5 updates, and hopefully I'll talk to you all soon. Eric, you are very welcome. Erica, that is so awesome. So excited to hear that you are really excited about the updates. I think that there is some major ones as well. So you all are very welcome. And looks like Judy had a question. So Judy said, are you saying Scheme Painter only works with PGC symbols? So if a manufacturer's library were developed completely in Creator, it won't work. What about after you add the new schemes? Yeah, Judy, that's a great question. So no, not just for PGC symbols. For some catalog symbols, they might have the option to use schemes as well. It just really depends. If your product uses the new schemes, so you know that your chair gets applied finishes through that new schemes dialog box, then the scheme painter will work. So two things that are going to be required for that: you do have to have that new schemes layout, so your manufacturer has to adopt that, and your item has to be applied through schemes. So if the finishes are applied through schemes already, then the scheme painter will work for that there. Yeah, no problem. Great question. Any other questions out there? Sammy, you are very welcome, and so are you, Judy. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy 11.5. Again, if you know of anyone who wants to learn about 11.5, please make sure they join one of our webinars or watch the recording on our CET Designer briefcase. But I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and I will talk to you all soon.